Hello Reds, welcome along to All for United.
Yes, everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to All for United. I'm Karthik, and I'm here on an actually serious show. I know all of you used to see me on All for United Uncut. Abel, if you've not seen that, you need to watch it because you'll have a good laugh. I am Abel today, Bundesliga expert, as seen on Sport TV. He is here to talk to me about Jadon Sancho. I don't know if you've heard of him. Apparently, United have signed him. Have you heard of him, Abel?
No, I haven't heard him. I haven't heard anything. I mean, there's really not really been anything the last couple of years. So.
Yeah, I love it when United do these hidden gems. You know, they just go out and sign these players you've never heard of, and they do it so quickly. It's incredible. Honestly, obviously, United fans are very excited. We've been waiting for this transfer for 2 years, and finally, it's come. It's happened. 90 million euros is the reported fee, so we've saved about 35 million pounds if we convert it. Reportedly, the add-ons are over 5 installments. I'm not sure exactly what that amount is. I know that Manchester City will get 10 to 15 million of that fee. So it is a good deal if you look at it. I mean, considering how much teams like Arsenal pay for player Nicolas Pepe, it is a good deal, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it depends on where you look at it from, right? Like I think for most United fans and from United perspective, it's a pretty easy deal, and compared to last season, when the 120 was quoted, so I think compared to that, it's a fairly good deal. Although you do have to keep in mind that he has played another season, so his contract has run down to 2023. It would have been at Dortmund, so he would have had another 2 years, not as much, and typically that drives down the price a little bit. And I think probably also the COVID times now that it's been over a year, I think that has certainly affected the market negatively, although some people were saying that the top end guys like Sancho would certainly fall into that category, would be like sort of proof or like COVID proof in terms of the price. But I think at the end of the day, Dortmund were just they just wanted to be done with this, and I think all of us can share that sentiment that this saga is it's been over a year. And there were a lot of reports, I think it was even mentioned in The Athletic as well, that he wasn't really super excited to go back to Dortmund and start preseason and drag that out again, which I can totally understand. I think the past season, at least first half of the past season, was very much about him not always being 100% satisfied with being there, and obviously not getting your urge. And I think just like anything, when things don't work out for you, it takes a little while to adjust. And
I think that played a big part in his season, because obviously you mentioned the first half of last season. It was very clear he wanted to join the club. We agreed personal terms. And then obviously the whole saga with the transfer fee came in, and then we didn't agree a transfer. And then all of a sudden he's stuck at Dortmund. He doesn't want to be there. And the first half of the season, he doesn't have a good start. And everyone goes, oh, well, is he really the player United want to sign? But then the second half of the season, he goes and he ends up with 30-plus goal contributions anyway. So according to you, just how good of a player are United getting here?
I mean, you're getting somebody who is among the 3 best players in the Bundesliga for sure. You're getting somebody with the upside to be one of the top 5 players in the world. So, I mean, I think from the days of him playing at Watford and then certainly at City, Neymar comparisons are the ones that are the easiest to make, just because of sort of the street footballer style, who also fits into different systems, being able to play multiple positions, really, either wings as well, and sort of a number 10-ish role on different ways. He's a very, very, I don't know if it's underrated, but he's a super clinical finisher, which is just something that I think people don't think about so much, because I think a lot of people think of him as a creator, somebody who helps others and assists others. But the dribbling obviously is the one that gets people excited. But I do think he's more unselfish than somebody like Neymar, and he's still only just turned 21 in March. So that's the other thing, and it's been almost 3.5 seasons in the Bundesliga. So I was lucky to catch pretty much. I was trying to think, like, it was when I was looking at the show, like I probably have seen every single minute of him playing, and a few times live. So it seems like the only one that doesn't appreciate Jadon Sancho is Gareth Southgate. But that's
well, it's funny you should mention that. My next question was going to be, because the majority of United fans are very excited about this because we know Jadon Sancho is a fantastic player, but there are a section of fans that maybe don't watch the Bundesliga as much, and they look at Gareth Southgate not playing Jadon Sancho, and they go, "Is there a reason why he's not playing him?" Do you think there's any drawbacks to Jadon Sancho?
Not really. Like, I mean, I think there is, like, I understand the hesitancy in terms of some Bundesliga players who made a big move to the Premier League didn't work out. Like, I think Naby Keita, which kind of hurts me personally because I was a huge fan of his. But some of the other ones who are more systemic players, like Joe Linton comes to mind, that didn't work out. But I think, like, with some of those guys, the red flags were there. I really don't think with Jadon Sancho that there's almost like no possibility of this not working out, and so I think, yeah, I don't understand the Southgate thing. I mean, obviously England are certainly not lacking, talent in terms of the offensive creative role that he's so there's a wealth of choice there. But yeah, I mean, everybody that I've talked to who follows the Bundesliga is just completely shell-shocked about how he hasn't basically played. So,
well, I mean, if you get me started on Gareth Southgate, we'll be here all day because that's a podcast on its own.
Yeah,
but in terms of Sancho, then let's get talking about him. In terms of his what he did the team. First off, what do fans in Germany think of him? Like you said, that he's potentially in the top 3 players in the Bundesliga. Who do you rate above him? Probably one of them is Lewandowski. Who would you say the other one is?
Yeah, I mean, it's like Lewandowski and Haaland, I guess now. Everybody, like I think but you do have to kind of adjust for position. But in terms of like the sort of creative player, like maybe Thomas Müller has had a better season than him under Hansi Flick, but that's very much about the system as much. I still think everybody would take Jadon Sancho over even like the next couple of years as well. So, and then you have to factor in other things like the excitement and just sort of just watching him, right? Like there's lots of elements to being a footballer, but yeah, and also it's been basically 3.5 seasons of this. I mean, my first memories of Jadon Sancho, and I like actually was just reminded of this the other day by Chris Williams, who's Bundesliga Liverpool reporter, and I actually was in Berlin in like 2018 January, and it's a dreadful Dortmund season because this is the season where Peter Bosz was fired, and they put in Peter Stöger, who didn't really play exciting football, and Sancho was there, but he had played once or twice, maybe in the fall, but really wasn't in the plans. And then there was winter break, and this was like the second game I think after the winter break, and it's it's like 0 degrees outside, and it's not exactly pleasant to play in against a tough Hertha side. And Dortmund didn't have like a huge plan other than let's hit the ball to Sancho and have him go 1-on-1, and he was 17 at the time, and he was just absolutely tormenting Hertha and whoever it was, like Mitchell Weiser, who was rated as a good defender at the time, and some of these other guys as well. And I mean, to have somebody do that in front of 60,000 people or 65,000 on a cold day, and it's one of your first, like I think it might have been his first start. It definitely was his first assist. So right then you could tell that this guy is special because you don't really base game plans or match plans around 17-year-old wingers, right? To beat somebody 1-on-1, like and then that means that Dortmund obviously knew what they had, and he was given a chance, and that was great to see.
I mean, that's a great story because you always hear, like United fans, we always talk about Ronaldo's debut at Bolton. Obviously, Jadon Sancho will potentially be filling in his shirt. Do you think that pressure might get to him at all, or do you reckon he's a kind
potentially like
that almost wants that wants the limelight?
I mean, it was interesting because, like, for a long time there are those question marks because in the games against, for example, like Bayern, there are more games when he didn't really play so well. Like I kind of remember the one where in the season where Dortmund were really close to winning the title in 2018-19 under Lucien Favre. They like he wasn't maybe 100% fit, but he played against Bayern, and then he was substituted after like 35, 37 minutes, and it was clearly like one of those where Favre just wasn't happy with him defending. And then he also missed a couple of games against Bayern. So like actually like there might have been just only like one good game against Bayern, and that's so that is like I think a fair criticism of him. I'm not sure if it's necessarily like him not living up to it. It's more just like Dortmund in general against Bayern, other than maybe the match and like right after the football came back in Poland, like that was the one where they kind of went toe to toe. But more often than not, especially in Munich, they just collapsed, and he wasn't really able to stop those. But yeah, like I don't know, that's probably a fair criticism. But again, like he was also 18, 19, 20 at the time, and it's like how many of those players do really carry the team on their back?
Exactly. I mean, players like Mbappe have set an unrealistic standard for players of that age where, people look at a 21-year-old, 20-year-old and think this guy should be hitting 30 goals a season. You're like, no, he shouldn't actually. But for the people that potentially don't watch as much Bundesliga, I've watched loads of Jadon Sancho for Dortmund, and I think, I pretty much see where he could fit into this United team. But in your opinion, what is his best position now? Because we know he's versatile. I've seen him play in the 10. I've seen him play on either flank. Where do you think he's most effective?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's not, in a sense, like a pure winger, although to the extent that really there aren't too many pure wingers anymore, because like the very best teams don't really play like the 4-4-2 wingers. Like, I think he's really good at playing either as like one of the 4-2-3-1, like one of those wingers who are more like the half space wingers, because you can have like an overlapping fullback. He's a little bit better from the right, I would say, which seems a little bit counterintuitive because you'd think he's better from the left. But yeah, he's often really good. When like I actually thought the best place for him was when they played like a 3-4-2-1, and he was one of the two, like in Germany, that's kind of called as a double 10. So that's a very good. It's a very conducive formation to these sort of creative dribbling attackers, because you most of the time you defend them with like a back three, and then you're playing against a center back who you can just drag out of position, or you can take them to the wing and you can open up space. But really, I think with Sancho, it's more just his play, his style of play of being able to play on the counter, right? I mean, obviously he has the speed, although it's not like earth-shattering speed, but he has like the sort of quickness and deftness to evade players. And I think what separates him, because I think a fair number of players have counterattacking speed, but the ability to break down set defenses and create, and which is that to me, that's always the mark of somebody who's a difference maker. Because like, let's face it, like a team like United or a team like Dortmund, which is going to dominate most other teams in possession, you'll end up facing a lot of these low blocks, and then you're going to look at a 5-3 chain or a 4, two banks of 4, and then how do you break that down, right? And Sancho is very good at that, because he can draw you in and he can beat you with a dribble, but he's also not looking to beat people one-on-one, like let's say like a Dembele, like Ousmane Dembele, who was there before him, or like a Neymar, but he's looking to combine. And I think that's what makes him really special, is that he's really fun to play with, because he can just play those quick layoffs, and he can just play these little passes that nobody really sees, and I think that's what makes him truly special, because there's really not that many players like that, and certainly like not too many who can do the one-on-one skills, who can finish like he does, and who can create like he does. I think that's what makes him really special.
There is an interesting comment here. First of all, the thing you mentioned about being able to beat a set defense is probably what United need the most. So that's really interesting to hear. I'm quite excited by that. But an interesting comment here from Stu. Sancho with Hakimi, superb. We've seen that combination. That was great. So with Junior, yeah, he was good with him as well. Now, I don't potentially think this is 100% correct, but I want to hear what you think, because this is a very good point. How important is a fullback to how Jadon Sancho plays? Do you think he needs a more attacking one to support him, or do you think he needs a defensive one to cover him?
I mean, it depends, because like I don't actually think like he was all that good with Meunier, but it has to do with more with Meunier, and he wasn't. He's had a horrendous season at Dortmund. It's safe to say, but I do agree with the Hakimi assessment, because that was an amazing. I mean, it was a. I mean, it's a partnership that you kind of wish that would have lasted a little bit longer, because they had so much chemistry and so much speed. Could it work with somebody like Wan-Bissaka? I actually think maybe, because like I think the part where Sancho struggles the most is the defensive part, and obviously now that's again like, do you need him to defend that much? Like most of the games you probably don't. Just need him to like counter press and be in good positions, but maybe in sort of the bigger games, in the big Champions League games, or the sort of you might need that. But yeah, I think does he need the decoy runs? Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Like I think Wan-Bissaka to the extent that to the extent that I follow Wan-Bissaka, I feel like he's been improving a little bit in the offensive part of his game, but I certainly don't think it's a bad idea to have a strong fullback behind Sancho. So yeah, that's a good point. Definitely need some fullback that he can combine with. So maybe that could be the downside. But don't forget, like he can also just play on the other side. Like he can just play on the left as well. So maybe with Luke Shaw.
That would be an interesting one, and particularly I'm quite excited to see how a front three that involves Rashford and Sancho work together. And we've seen Sancho sometimes almost drift inwards, so maybe he could combine with Marcus Rashford. Do you think there's a potential relationship to be formed there as part of a front three?
Yeah, they seem to be very close friends from what I've seen everywhere, and yeah, that's. I mean, again, like a guy like Sancho, you pretty much can plug him in and play with anybody. Like he's one of those guys. So yeah, that's certainly a possibility. So yeah, I just think it really sort of doesn't matter, because that was kind of the story with him. Like he got along with, and he played well with Götze, who when Götze was at Dortmund, it was very far removed from the Götze of World Cup winner goal Götze, and then he also played with Schürrle, who was but then he can play. Like I think what was interesting is that he meshed so well with Royce, who's a different kind of player. He meshed so well with Haaland, and I think what's interesting is that he was overshadowed by Haaland, but I don't think he seemed to mind. It seemed like he almost enjoyed. Like there was never a second of jealousy or sort of not setting him up. Like that's where I mentioned the unselfishness. So I think it's very rare to have somebody with that sort of a talent, and somebody who knows he can just beat anybody or any defender at any time, but then choosing to be unselfish. So that's what makes it really interesting.
Funny you mentioned Haaland, because that was going to be my next point. Obviously, we've gained from Jadon Sancho signing for us, but Dortmund have taken a big loss on that one, I think. And I think one of those things is that partnership with Erling Haaland. And I think a lot of people underestimate just how important Sancho was to Haaland's form. What effect do you think that will have on Erling Haaland's form? And do you think potentially there's a move to be done there in the future? Because we know that release clause clicks in next season.
Yeah, I mean, I think like this is the tricky thing with Dortmund, is that you can never really go into it just because like within the context of European football, like Dortmund are one of these clubs that's not at the very top. Like it's like my good friend Matt Herman calls them terminal clubs, and I think like very much Manchester United is a terminal club. Like there's not really too many other ones, and same thing with PSG or Man City. And Dortmund are one of those who maybe a level below that, who know that your player, if he's going to have one or two good seasons, is going to go to those clubs. So I think there's always, like with Pulisic, there was always an expectation that he would leave, and I think even now, I think there's actually been quite a big amount of fortune for Dortmund that they were able to hang on to Sancho, and they got 3.5 seasons out of him. And think it's just in the same way. It's the same thing with Haaland, that you got them so quickly and they exploded. I mean, it's not their fault that these guys are so good that they're tearing up the league and they're making Champions League runs. So I think it's just the nature of where we are in football. Like we can't really expect players to stick around for 10, 15 years. You have them for two great seasons. That's amazing. And then you just look for the next one. But I think that's where Dortmund are great, because they've already got the Gio Reyna or different player, but Jude Bellingham, and then if it doesn't work out, I mean, I'm not saying that they always hit, because there's plenty of guys who they didn't necessarily hit on, like Alexander Isak. I think is a pretty good example of somebody that they let go, or let it get away. But it's more hits than other teams. So it's very much built into the model, built into the system of Dortmund, of scouting young players and then just finding them. And it's also the package that they offer, right? Because like Jadon Sancho wouldn't have been this player, because he just wouldn't have. I mean, that's why he went to Dortmund, right? He wouldn't have come through at Man City, or same thing with other players. So you get an opportunity, and then you make the most of it. And Dortmund is certainly a team that's super attractive. That's why these players keep going there, because they see this as a platform for them to play in an attractive league, which is still one of the top 3, 4, 5 leagues in the world. You go to Champions League, you can play there and showcase yourself, and then you can get that next jump to one of these really, really big clubs, to one of the 6 to 8 big clubs.
I agree, and I think definitely the decision to go to was a very good one from him, and I think it was a brave one, because at the time not many English players were going abroad, and I do respect that. We're on the topic of Haaland, and obviously partnering with a striker like that, and a good comment here from Fred. Will Sancho link up with Cavani similar to the way he did with Haaland, and do you think Ole can improve him as a player and take him to the next level? Because, well, essentially what we're asking is, what kind of a striker do you think suits Jadon Sancho the most in terms of getting the most out of each other?
Honestly, like anybody. I mean, again, it's one of those where he's one of these guys who, like a LeBron James. Like, it doesn't really matter who's your teammate. Like, he's just so good that it's not like I know what he's asking, but I actually, like, one of these guys who really rates Cavani, and like a couple of years ago at the World Cup, I wrote a huge piece about why Cavani is so underrated. But yeah, it doesn't make, and I think like Cavani and Haaland, there's certainly, like, even in the Haaland scouting piece I wrote, I've said that like Haaland has a lot of off the ball runs that are Cavani like. So yeah, I see some similarities. But again, you can put pretty much any striker. Again, like maybe not just put a caveat on that. Like, maybe not, like, I don't know, Duncan Ferguson or somebody like that, who's like the very typical sort of traditional number 9 who's not very good with his feet. Like, he might be struggling because Dortmund, like, they're not going to try to cross the ball like that was another thing. But yeah, if it's not like that, but I mean, I'm sure United know that more than I do, and they're much smarter than that. So yeah, Cavani should work well. In terms of improving him as a player, yeah, I mean, I mentioned the consistency. That's definitely one of those things, because like Dortmund did have that sort of chatter in the background that it's a nice club to be at, it's a fun club to be at, there's lots of young players, but maybe it's not the one where every day you bring like your A game to training, and then you train. Like, that's what separates them from Bayern, because you can't really do that at Bayern. And although there was a lot of good reports this season that Sancho kind of has taken up a mentoring role at age 20 of the younger guys like Jude Bellingham or Gio Reyna, and even Haaland to some extent. So that was good to hear from a leadership standpoint. But like, certainly that's what we talked about at the beginning of the show, is like he would have these games where he was disengaged, or like he was injured a little bit, or like there were a couple of disciplinary reasons, right, where he just came back late or didn't want to play, or I mean, those certainly were there. So again, it didn't go as far as, say, what Dembele did or Aubameyang did, who kind of outright went on strike and refused to play. So it's better than those guys. But yeah, I think that's something that he needs to work on. Being more of more professional. I think United and Solskjaer and that sort of stewardship there is a good environment. And with Rashford, I think somebody is a good one to follow, and of course some of the other senior guys. So yeah, that should help. Probably even just being closer to home. Maybe that's better there as well. So I think all of those things are something that he can definitely work on.
It's interesting that you mentioned leadership, because I think that's something that Ole wants more in his team. And I think if you look at the United squad, you've got players like Marcus Rashford, a leader at his young age. You've got Bruno Fernandes, obviously. You've got Paul Pogba. You've got leaders all over the pitch. And I think adding Jadon Sancho possibly increases that almost leadership quantity as well as quality, because he's been there. He's won things with Dortmund, and I think that's important. And I think that's what Ole's looking for. Finally, before we wrap up on this discussion, because we could talk about Jadon Sancho for ages, and people would want to hear it. But finally, for those who are watching this, because I think all of us, because of how long this transfer, because it's come so late, we're almost underplaying how excited we are. Finally, just from you, is Jadon Sancho someone we need to be treating as a generational talent? Is this someone that could be the future of English football? And is this someone we need to be a lot more excited about?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been on record pretty much like ever since first time I saw him. I think just from there was the game I remember was when they turned it around against Leverkusen. They were 2-0 down, and he was one of the architects of turning that around. And I think that was very clear. So as much as there have been some misses from some players who went to the Premier League who I was pretty sure on. I think he's probably the surest thing. Maybe Haaland, but again, like Sancho has more of a track record, and even like if because he's not dependent on his speed so much. So even if he were to get injured or something, or something like that, his game wouldn't change. It would still it will still age well. So yeah, I mean, I actually struggle to think of somebody who's more of a generational talent, sort of regardless of nationality, and certainly for England. So yeah, I would think that this is as close to a slam dunk as you can get. And he's got a track record. He really has everything. And yeah, he's still only just turned 21 a couple months ago. So I mean, again, I think it's a fantastic transfer for United. I think it's a decent one for Dortmund. They were happy to kind of, it's run its course. I think his career at Dortmund has run its course. And for United to get him for this amount of money and wrap it up before, basically while the Euros is going on, before the new season, I think it's fantastic. So it's one of those where it's a decent deal for Dortmund. I think is a slam dunk, fantastic no-brainer for United.
Just out of interest, who are Dortmund looking at as a replacement?
Yeah, I mean, there were some names. I think they mentioned Daniel Malin, who played for the Netherlands, but he's more of a sort of a striker. I mean, you even saw that at the Euros. A teammate is Noni Madueke, who's another one for PSV, who's more of a creator. There were some other guys. I mean, this is like in general, Dortmund with the chief scout Marcus Palawa, they've I mean, like any top club, they will have a short list for years. Like I mentioned, they always have different ones, and they know that they're only going to keep a player like Sancho or Pulisic or Dembele or Aubameyang for 2, 3, 4 years. So they will be tracking multiple players, and with their track record, of Sancho for 7 million, of Dembele for 15 million, of Pulisic for basically nothing, and selling these guys for 60 to 100 million, it's hard to bet against them. So yeah, it could also be somebody that we haven't really mentioned, or maybe somebody who's a younger, like a Jeremy Doku or somebody like that.
I was literally about to say his name.
Yeah, there's. I mean, it's again it's a bit of a playing Football Manager thing, but no, yeah, that's the one part. If Dortmund were as good at signing with inside the Bundesliga and signing 25-year-olds with a reputation, or 28-year-olds, then they probably would have a couple more championships. But in terms of signing the young players, they've been pretty much flawless with 1 or 2 exceptions.
Fair enough. Honestly, thank you for coming on and talking to us about Jadon Sancho.
Okay.
Obviously, United fans are absolutely buzzing with his signing. Hopefully, United can now go and push forward. We've been linked with Rafael Varane. Hopefully, we can get that done. And then we'll see what goes on then. But it is a fantastic start to the summer. Thank you for joining us today on All for United. Make sure everyone in the comments to like, comment more if you want to read it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're new. Make sure to follow Abel on Twitter. We'll drop it in the description, or we'll tag him on a post on Twitter. Thank you for your time, Abel, and thank you everyone in the comments for joining us. I will see you very soon on All for United, probably tomorrow, Sunday for All for United Uncut. Until then, see you next time.